Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to start a new project. This is one that my wife was requesting. So we're going to do a leather koozie. So come on in and let's get started. What I'm going to do is I took, if you've probably got a million of these laying around, these lightweight foam koozies. It's got advertising all over it. So what I did was I took one of those and I just split the stitching out of it. So I split the stitching out of it, opened it up. That's what my beginning pattern's going to be. Now, here's the thing. I know just from making mistakes in the past with leather projects, this exact pattern is not going to work for leather. The reason why is this material stretches. It's that impregnated foam and it stretches. So when you put a can in there, it's going to stretch out and hold that can tight. Leather's not going to do that. So I'm going to have to allow more space on the sides where my seams go in order to allow for that can and that leather that's not going to stretch like this foam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave it the same height, which is this portion or this dimension here. So I'm just going to take it up to the edge of my poster board that I'm making my pattern out of, and then I'm going to take it up to the top and I'm going to leave an extra ½ inch. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to leave an extra ½ inch between my koozie that I'm going to use as my pattern and the edge of my poster board. So measure on both sides, make sure it's good and straight, and it's the same ½ inch from each side, and then I'll go ahead and just lightly mark these edges. And I'm going to go ahead and mark around the koozie at the top too, so I can see my ½ inch difference. Then I'm going to go ahead and lightly mark around what will end up being the bottom. And I may have to change this part here also, where the round bottom part matches, because I'm not sure how much of that is actually stretches the way they make these foam koozies when you put a can in there. So that may have to be allowed for also. So let's go ahead and mark this edge lightly. And again, I can straighten all these up and make them exact after the fact. I'm just trying to get a light pattern mark onto my poster board. So I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, but there's my light markings. And then I've got my ½ inch up here difference. I'm going to add it down here at the bottom. And hopefully that's extra ½ inch is more than enough to allow for the leather not stretching, number one. Number two, allow me enough room to do my stitching. So I'm going to put this on my grid sure I've got a nice square pattern before I make my straight marks. And I'm going to make these darker. Remember, my first marks were pretty light. And I'm just using a number 2 pencil. And then I'll turn it. I'm going to get rid of this excess so it doesn't get in my way here. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees and need to make sure that I make this line on my marks that I measured a 1/2 inch away on that side. This one's already a 1/2 inch with the straight edge. And then on this section, I always keep different types of round objects. Like this is a center out of a tape, a roll of tape. I just keep random things that I think I can use as a pattern. So what I'll do is find one that meets up pretty well with that center round piece. Looks like this electrical tape roll matches up pretty well, and then I can make my dark line for my circle on that. And it is just a little bit bigger, but that's okay. That's not going to hurt anything, I don't think. So there's my darkened lines. Let's go ahead and cut this out. I do have a new blade in this knife, so it's good and sharp. Turn it 90 degrees. Make my second cut. And again, you could, if you wanted to and you felt more comfortable doing it, you could add 3/4 of an inch, or you could add an inch if you want. You could always cut that off once you kind of fit it and see. And I may have not added enough. May have to go back and actually make another pattern, but we'll see. Once I make this pattern and mark it, and I get it to where it fits good, then we'll know we can use this pattern over and over. Now, another thing that's going to change that for you is the thickness of your leather. So the thicker your leather is, then the more room you're going to need to allow for the diameter of that can. So you won't be able to, I don't think you'll be able to make a pattern, use it for, let's say, maybe 6-ounce leather, and then turn around and use the exact same pattern for the same size can with 10-ounce. Because I don't think it's going to be the same, because the thickness of the leather is going to change the size of your koozie. So I'm going to go around this half circle here. and then go around this half circle. So I could have done the same thing with just taking a can and measuring it with a cloth tape, measuring tape, and then figuring out all my dimensions. I could have done the same thing doing that, but I thought, hey, why do that when I've got a million of these little foam koozies laying around? I'll just take one of those apart and use it to start, make it quicker for my pattern. So I'm going to go grab a can. And here's the example I was talking about as far as the size of your pattern, because this bottle of water, this 7.5 ounce can, and then here's a standard 12 ounce can. So all those would take a different size pattern. I'm making this pattern for a standard 12 ounce can. So I'll set it directly in the middle here. And obviously we do want this a little snug. I'd like for it to be kind of a easy press fit when I'm done. We'll set that right in the center of that circle, raise this up, and then push these to the side, as so. I am going to stitch it on the outside where those two meet, and I can always trim all that off when I'm done. So I may leave this the way it is. It looks like I have plenty of excess with my 1/2 inch on each end. It looks like my bottom is okay, and that should leave for a little snug fit on the bottom. So let's go ahead and use our pattern. I'm going to go ahead and mark it as a 12 ounce. And let's go ahead and put 6 to 8 ounce leather. So that's where we're going to start with this pattern, and we'll see what happens. So I've marked it for 12 ounce can. And 6 to 8 ounce leather. So let's grab us a piece of leather. And this one's perfect. This is a piece of looks like chrome tan, burgundy. So it's pre-dyed burgundy color, which is really pretty. And this did come from Kentucky Leather and Hides. So you get a chance, go check them out. They've got some really neat exotic skins and leather and pre-dyed. They've got chrome tan, veg tan, all kinds of stuff. So go check them out at www.kentuckyleatherandhides.com. So need to mark this. I think I'm going to just mark it on the inside, since it's already got some writing and stuff on the inside anyway, and that's not going to bother me for this project. Nobody's going to be able to see inside that or read it, or especially when there's a can in it. So I'm going to take my Sharpie and go around the outside of my pattern. Actually, this is a perfect size to use without wasting a lot of excess leather. So, and it is in my scrap bin, so it's left over from a larger project. So here's another project you could do that is not going to take a ton of leather, so it shouldn't be expensive. Let's go ahead and, again, I have a new blade in here. We'll go ahead and cut this out. And what I'm doing, since I used that Sharpie marker, it is a fine point, fine tip. And I'm just splitting that line as I cut it. And again, I've found that trial and error that the sharper my blade, the straighter my cuts. That might just be common sense to a lot of you, but I find, especially with these self-healing mats, that the sharper my blade, the straighter my cuts. That's why you see I'm not even using a straight edge on this. I'm just cutting it freehand. But it cut out real nice. So there's my piece. Here's my pattern. So let's dry fit this with our can. Set it right in the center. Let's fold up the sides. Wrap it around the can. And I've got plenty of, you can see how much of the can sticks out. That's perfect. Looks like probably about 3/4 of an inch all the way to the top. So it's nice to hold on to without having to hold on to the can. You can see the bottom is covered, so that's nice. And I've got plenty on the sides here to stitch. Now, once I stitch this, yes, I'm going to have to cut that off. But that's okay. That doesn't bother me. I'd rather stitch it and then have to cut it off than not have enough there and try to squeeze it together to stitch it. So it's not going to take that much leather, that much more leather to actually get a little extra there, and you can cut it off at the end. So that looks nice. It turned out really good, and that was quick. So it didn't take a lot of time to do that. You saw that in real time. Cutting out the pattern, marked the pattern, 6 to 8 ounce leather for a 12-ounce can. Transferred it onto my leather, cut it out into my pattern, or from my pattern, and I'm ready to go ahead and mark it, get my stitching holes in there, and stitch it. Maybe before I stitch it, I might want to personalize it somehow, or even put my maker's mark at the bottom. We may do that. And my thoughts are, in the next video, we'll go ahead and finish this up. And my thoughts are, if I moisten it up a little bit, then that way when I stitch it, I make my stitching holes and stitch it. Then when it dries, it's going to be a little stiffer, almost like wet molding, and then I'll have a nicer fit. So, and those stitches may pull a little tighter together. So we'll try that. We'll see what happens with that. We'll do a little experiment. So there's a quick, easy, you could do these in all different colors. You could do it in veg tan, chrome tan. You could do it in natural and then dye them the way you want. You can use pre-dyed. Very simple project that doesn't take a lot of leather and doesn't take a lot of time. Alright, so there's step one of the koozie pattern and leather. And let's go ahead and set that on there and wrap that around to give you an idea again what that's going to look like. There's the top, there's the bottom, it's going to be a nice looking koozie. So I appreciate you coming along. Come back next week. We'll go ahead and wrap this project up. So it will be a two-parter. And as I always say, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.